Research. What is it good for? In this presentation, we're going to be examining the different reasons for why authors use research when they do. Oftentimes, understanding why research exists is just as important as understanding what that research is. Before we begin, though, we need to be mindful of something called the rhetorical situation. Essentially, good writing is mindful of two key concepts which make up the rhetorical situation: audience and purpose. Good writing should be mindful of its audience. It's not intended toward a faceless, anonymous mass of people, but to a specific group of individuals who need that writing for some reason. It should also be propulsive. The writing has a reason for existing, whether it's argumentative, persuasive, or just explanatory. Research is no different and should also respond to the rhetorical situation. When authors use research, they're using it at an appropriate time. Let's walk through a hypothetical example to help us appreciate the importance of the rhetorical situation in terms of research. Suppose that there's a writer for Ebony magazine who wants to raise awareness for diabetes. She's going to have some important questions she needs to answer before she can write her article. The most important question she's probably going to have is, who's the audience? And subsequently, how can she reach this audience? In this situation, the audience literally is page flipping. They've opened a magazine and they're going from page to page, probably looking at graphics and images. Most likely they're not stopping on something unless it catches their attention. Additionally, they're probably a predominantly African American audience. Not exclusively, but most likely. Now we can ask, what kind of research can the author use to get her audience's attention? Statistics are a great way to grab someone's attention. Some alarming, eye-opening stat, like 1 out of 5 African Americans will develop diabetes in their lifetime, can get someone to stop flipping pages in the magazine and focus on the article in front of them. Finally, we can ask, what kind of research can the author use to develop her work? In this case, qualitative research, like interviews, would be a great way to give us more detailed information on the topic. You could interview someone who has and lives with diabetes, or even a doctor who could provide more information for us. We see ultimately how this writer is able to use research to address her own rhetorical situation. Let's take a look at these practices in what's called a confidential information memorandum. This type of a memo, as we're told in the introduction, is designed to acquaint and familiarize prospective buyers for a company with the business and operations of that company. In this case, it's called sample industries. Our audience is most likely shareholders and potential stockholders. They're not interested in a long-developed narrative about the company. They want quick and dirty information, most likely financial information. That's the type of research that's going to dominate this type of document. And we see indeed that it does, presented in a nice graphical format. We see here at the bottom that the author tells us that if we would like a more detailed summary, that can be found in the addendum. At this time, though, we're not interested in that. All we want are the bare bones. That attitude pervades the entire document. For example, in the ownership and history section, all we see are basic facts: the date of origination for the company and what type of corporation it's classified as. We don't have a long descriptive narrative about what inspired the owners to go into the business of sports manufacturing. The audience isn't interested in that. All this audience wants are numbers, financial information to help them figure out if they would like to invest in this company or not. We see that these authors have really targeted their audience extremely well. Their audience wants quantitative research most likely, and that's pretty much what they've presented. There isn't even really any actual language to accompany the graphs. We see that they totally dominate these sections. Let's take a look at a completely different kind of writing from that of a memo or a magazine article. It's called a literature review. Literature reviews are common in every academic field, so you better get used to seeing them. What they do essentially is help a reader enter an academic conversation on a topic by summarizing that topic. Note that individual sources are not what is summarized. Let's take a look at a literature review in this article about video games affecting education. Most literature reviews take place in the introduction. In this case, it does too, but not always. Familiarize yourself with the goals and objectives of literature reviews in your specific discipline, because they're going to change from discipline to discipline. Remember who our audience is when considering a literature review. They're not interested in an extensive summary of every single author on a topic. They just want to get caught up to speed on a subject so that they're conversant enough to understand the article in front of them. So consequently, what you're going to see is not extensive summary of specific individual contributions to a field, but to topics at large. Let's take a look at a specific example here. Look at this sentence. While some educators assume great interest in the effects of video games in enhancing players' learning skills, others take a more cautionary stand by viewing video games as promoting violence, social isolation, aggression, or negative imagery of women. Note the footnotes. These numbers just represent the sources that we can read more about if we'd like to in the references page. It's just like in the memo we just saw. If we wanted more financial data there, we could have looked at the addendum. Here, if we want to read these specific articles, we can go to the references page. Right now, though, all we care about is what this topic is about as a whole, and the authors synthesize these different sources to get that point across. There's always more to consider. The amount of academic or non-academic research out there is quite extensive, and this presentation cannot hope to cover it all. But what we have hopefully been able to impress upon you is the importance of the rhetorical situation when regarding research. Authors must respond to questions of both audience and purpose, and must choose the appropriate type of research for doing so. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.